Hey guys, in this video I will show you 9 tricks for Nikon Z cameras. These tricks are huge time savers and can make shooting experience a lot more enjoyable. Hi, I'm Miklos Mayer, a photography tour guide in Budapest, Hungary, and my channel is all about photography. So if you are as passionate about cameras as I am, then please subscribe to my channel and you will never miss any of my new content. So let's get into the first trick, which is quickly check the sharpness with the OK button or with a double tap. I don't know about you, but I like to check the sharpness of my photos right on the spot. By default, you have to press the magnify button multiple times for that, which takes quite some time. But there's a really easy and quick way to check sharpness. First, you can just simply double tap on any area on the screen and double tap if you want to go back. Or you can assign the OK button to do the exact same thing, to zoom in and out of the photo. Here's how you can set that up. Just go to the Custom Settings menu, Custom Controls Playback, select Zoom On and Off, and here go for the 1:1 100% view. This way, if you press the OK button when previewing the photo, it will jump to 100% view and you'll be able to quickly check the focus. And the second trick connects right here, which is jumping between the faces. If you have face and eye detection enabled on your Nikon Z camera and there are multiple faces on the photo, then you can jump between the faces with the selector dial in the front. This is a very useful feature and it enables you to quickly check sharpness on every face on the frame. And now comes the third trick for preview mode, and this is to compare parts of multiple images. If you want to check sharpness of multiple photos, you don't have to magnify into them one by one. Instead, you just magnify to the area you want to check and then rotate the selector dial on the back to jump between photos while maintaining the same magnification. For example, here I took many handheld shots of the moon and wanted to quickly filter out the bad ones. These are definitely sharp, but this one is clearly out of focus. This is a real time saver and luckily this works for almost every camera out there, so not just on Nikons, but on Canons, Sonys, Pentaxes, Olympus Cs? How the heck do you say that? Now comes the fourth trick, which is release button to use dial. I've been a long time Canon shooter, but when I bought my Nikon Z50 just for fun, one thing really bothered me. It's that you have to press and hold the ISO or exposure compensation button and rotate the dials at the same time to change the settings, which feels really uncomfortable, at least for me. Until somebody from my YouTube channel came to the rescue and commented under my Nikon Z50 review video that there's another way for that. Just simply go to the Custom Settings menu, Controls, Release button to use dial, and set this to on. With that selected, it's enough to press the ISO or exposure compensation button only once, and afterwards you can release and rotate the dials. It just feels so much comfortable and so much easier. And now comes the fifth trick, which is to engage auto ISO quickly with the dials. Talking about ISO setting, one of my favorite tricks is that after you press the ISO button on your Nikon, you can quickly turn the auto ISO setting on and off with the dial selector on the front. And of course, as usual, you can change the ISO speed with the back selector dial. I have already made a video about auto ISO, so I will not go in detail on that. I'm gonna put a link up there. But basically what auto ISO does is that the camera will always set the lowest ISO speed that gives you just fast enough shutter speeds. For example, here my minimum shutter speed was set to 1/100th of a second, and look how the camera raises the ISO automatically as I stop down the lens to keep the shutter speed at 1/100th of a second. The minimum shutter speed can be set in the photography menu under ISO sensitivity settings. You can either set the minimum shutter speed to a certain number, or you can just go for auto, in which case the camera takes the focal length into account. And you can tweak the auto setting even further to have 1-2 stops faster or slower minimum shutter speed than what the camera calculated. So for example, if you are using 16mm lens on your Nikon Z50, the normal auto minimum shutter speed setting would be 1/30th of a second. Here, if you go for +2 faster settings, that means that the camera will set roughly 120th of a second shutter speed, which is 2 stops faster than 1/30th of a shutter speed. The ISO speed at which you activate the auto ISO will be the bottom limit of the ISO range the camera will use, and the upper limit will be what you specify in the menu. So when you are using auto ISO, it really makes sense to have it set to ISO 100 and then activating the auto ISO, because this way the camera can use the whole ISO range for the auto ISO setting. And now comes the sixth trick, which is to set the exposure compensation with one dial only. This is just a small trick. You can make the selector dial in the front to change the exposure compensation without having to press the +- button. For this, go to Controls, Customize Command Dials, change Main Sub, and turn the exposure setting on. Then go back to the Controls menu, to the Metering and Exposure, and set Easy Exposure Compensation on. And now you will be able to change the exposure compensation with the front dial only. Now let's go on to trick number 7, which is to use the movie button to zoom in and out. On the Nikon Z cameras, you have the movie button right next to the ISO and the shutter button, so it makes sense to assign some kind of function to it when you are taking photos. Unlike with Nikon DSLRs, on the Z cameras, you cannot assign the ISO function to it. But there are so many things to choose from. My favorite here is the zoom on and off feature. So when I'm taking photos, I can quickly check if the area I'm focusing at is really sharp or not, and I don't really have to move my fingers at all. To set this up, just go into the Controls, Custom Controls, Shooting, and for the movie button, set Zoom on off. Now comes trick number 8, which is manual focusing at night in video mode. If you've been following me for a longer time, then you know that I'm a big fan of night photography, so much so that I even make my living of organizing night photography tours in Budapest. Now, I don't know how that connects to this video, but I will be very happy to take you on to a night photography tour in Budapest once we can travel safely again. If you ever wanted to take a photo of the Milky Way, you surely encounter the problem of focusing. You cannot use autofocus on the starry sky, so you have to go for manual focus. I have already made a video about manual focusing, I will link it up somewhere here. The crucial step is that you magnify into the live view and try to set proper focus on the stars. However, all the Nikon cameras I used so far have terribly bad, noisy live view at night. The noise makes it really difficult to focus on the stars, even if you magnify all the way in. But thank God there's a workaround for this, which I first read at nationalparksatnight.com. So here's the trick, which is quite counterintuitive. Instead of focusing in photo mode, just switch the camera into video mode and set the longest shutter speed, highest ISO, and widest aperture. Now, if you magnify in, you will see much less noise on the live view and focusing becomes a lot easier. I just simply can't understand why Nikon couldn't fix this problem so far. I'm pretty sure that this would be just a matter of a simple firmware update. Of course, after focusing, don't forget to switch the camera back into photography mode and don't dare to touch the focus ring. So that was my video about my favorite tricks for Nikon Z cameras, but don't forget that these tricks will work on most higher-end Nikon DSLRs as well. Under the video, in the comments, please let me know if you have any other favorite tricks about Nikon cameras. I'm especially interested in them because I just started using Nikon cameras only a year ago. If you liked the video, please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button, and I'm gonna see you in the next one. All the best from Hungary.